What's good? Welcome back to the God's Vibes podcast. What's good, Faith Walkers? Hello, hello. So glad that you're here. We're going to dive into a powerful teaching today. So make sure that you go grab a notebook, that you're prepared to do the exercises and write down the pearls of wisdom and the golden nuggets that God will highlight just for you. Be ready. One thing we don't do is surface around here. So if you're new, welcome. We're so glad you're here. You did not land here randomly, and I invite you right now to hit the subscribe button. We share episodes often on Tuesdays. We've got a Tune In Tuesday around here, so you can know for sure that you're going to have at least an episode a week, but we often sprinkle in so much more goodness. So I highly recommend subscribe. That's how you can be the first to know when a new episode comes out. That's how we can know that you're here. And if you want to share the love, if you want to be generous with your presence, you can go ahead and rate the podcast 5 stars and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And then after you do that, go to julianapage.com/podcast and we'll also send you a free gift. All right, now, announcements. I feel like I need to have a fun person come on the podcast and just help me do announcements. But we've got some exciting things coming up inside Courage Co. And if you're not familiar, Courage Co. is a community that is off social media. It is a training hub. It is full of discipleship programming on so many different levels to truly meet you where you are. But really to help you recognize who we are here for. We are not here for the faith walker or the believer that is satisfied on milk, right? The Bible talks about you have to graduate from milk and move into solid food, okay? So we are here for those that, yes, they have been through pain. They have been through trauma. They've made mistakes, right? They've taken accountability for their life and they genuinely want to change their life. They want to do relationship with God. They want to build their life on the rock. They want to nurture and develop their faith. They want to mature in Christ, right? And they're ready and they're willing to do the work. So we really help get you activated in all different aspects, and then we help deploy you into the good plans and purposes that God has for you. So that's a little bit about what happens in Courage Co. Anything from a 30 days of faith walking program to a full-on life coach certification and so many things in between, from prophetic training, a VIP mastermind where there's a lot of mentorship happening this month. Upcoming month, September 4th. Mark your calendars. I am hosting a free workshop that you can come join. It's going to be power-packed with goodness and revelation. We are hosting that, and we are officially launching Courage Co Monthly Coaching. So our certified life coaches are available for coaching. So what this means for you is that you can have 4 coaching sessions a month and a workshop literally every single month for really the price of 1 coaching session. Absolutely insane. Never seen it done before. We're so excited, and that's going to be something that you want to get on the wait list for. So there is a link in the show notes to get on the wait list for that, but make sure that you know this. September 4th, we are officially launching Courage Co Monthly Coaching with our certified life coaches. So that's a great way to add accountability and get into action in your life. You can know what to do, but if you don't do it, you might as well not know what to do, right? Accountability is so important. Having people in your corner that can draw out the gold that is in you and help you recognize that you do have the answers. You're usually just not still enough to get them, to receive them, right? And can also give you a lot of tools and skills and practical ways to move forward. This is going to be such a great opportunity. So I encourage you to come join us. Mark your calendar, September 4th. We also, this week, oh my goodness, for those of you that missed our free prophetic ministry night, do not miss this one. We are doing it on Tuesday, August 27th, 7 p.m. Central Time. We have another free prophetic night. So if you want to experience the prophetic, receive prophetic ministry, learn about prophetic monthly that we offer inside Courage Co., that is the space. So join us. There's a link in the show notes below to RSVP to that. Please RSVP, right? If somebody's inviting you to something, RSVP, yes or no, but RSVP to that. So far we've got Tuesday, 8/27, 7 p.m. Central Time, free prophetic night. Then a week later, we've got a free workshop. I'll surprise you with that topic here very soon, but make sure that you get into Courage Co because it'll be announced in there. And then we're also officially launching Courage Co monthly coaching on 9/4, but you can get on the wait list for that right now. Okay, so much goodness in there. You can find Courage Co at www.courageco.org. I like exercising all of the back and forth, all of the workshops, all the exercises from a desktop. I prefer that, but you can access everything from an app, which is really great. So if you're on the go, if you're on a walk, if you want to listen to things from there, that's totally an option as well. So come join us inside Courage Co. All right. And then for coaching, I do have 2 spots available on my calendar right now. So if you are looking for somebody to work with one-on-one, you can email info@julianapage.com and we will send you all the details about working together and what that could look like. All right, let's dive into the message. Did you guys get it all? If I were to pop quiz you, would you know what I just said? So funny. Really, come get in Courage Go, because everything, when you're in there, there's a dashboard and there's an events tab that always has all the events. So that's one of the quickest ways that you know what's going on, and you can sync it all to your calendar. So it'll just be on your calendar and you can just join us. All right. So we're going to talk about self-awareness today, okay? But we're going to hit this from many different angles because this is so important as a human, so important as a parent, so important as a leader, so important as a boss, as an entrepreneur, as an employee, as a volunteer, so important just to life, okay? So we're going to come at this from many different angles. Now, this is something that's really interesting. Many people, when I say this topic, will like, I'm already self-aware. That's usually outing yourself that you're not as aware as you think. Typically, you'll find with wise people, they start to admit the more they know, the less they actually know, right? Because there's so much to know. It's kind of like what it looks like when you're on a walk with God, right? The more we start learning about God, we start to recognize that his mysteries, his greatness, right? It's far too great for us to fully know and comprehend, right? But we can keep exploring. We can keep discovering. Self-awareness is similar. You can keep becoming more and more aware, and that will be an asset, especially in the times that we live in. We have a lot of people that have not only very low common sense, but they have very little self-awareness, okay? So let that not be any of you. And it's not. If you're listening to a podcast like this, it's not the case, okay? But we're going to really educate in a very different way on this, okay? Now, if I were to give you an encouragement, and we teach about this in our Spirit-Driven Success Life Coach certification, I teach all about what Spirit-Driven Success is and what building success according to God's success plan looks like personally for you and how to coach from that as well, okay? But what if you were to redefine success by becoming, not accomplishing? Entertain that for a second. What if you were to redefine success by becoming, not accomplishing? Becoming, not accomplishing. Because here's what we often try to do as humans. We often try to write out all our goals, write out all our plans, and then go tell God to bless them. And then get frustrated when they don't start coming together, right? And they start falling apart. Now, what we miss is that this is an inside-out journey. So if you're not focusing on, one, who you already are being, right, then you probably have no idea about who you need to become for the promise, for the accomplishment, for the dream, for the desire, for the goal, right? Because at any given time, you are working on 2 versions of you, okay? There's the version of you that you are being today, all right? And then there's the version of you that you are getting clearer and clearer on every single day that you are becoming. Now, this is not something that you go discover in a personality test. This is not something that you go discover by reading all these books. You actually find your identity in God. So he reveals more and more of what he put in you, of who he's form-shaped and anointed you to be, of who he's designed you to be, and you start becoming familiar with that, and then you start practicing more and more of what that looks like. So when God says that you are a bold leader, then you're like, well, how does a bold leader think? How do they process emotion? How do they behave? How do they walk and show up in the world? How do they operate? What is it like to be a bold leader? Right? That's not who you've been being. Now you have to start entertaining, let me actually unpack that. God, help me to understand what you mean. Show me examples in your word. Help me to recognize what it means to be bold in your eyes, what it means to be strong and mighty in you, not in my own strength, but in you, what it means to lead like you. Now it's getting clearer and clearer on who you are becoming, who he is drawing you into being more of, because you're probably not communicating and expressing that with the world fully yet. He's showing you, this is who I'm calling you to be. This is what I've invested in you. This is what I've planted on the inside of you. And you can start activating more and more of that every day. Think about it like this. When you get exposed to somebody, let's say that you consider them a great communicator, they're inspiring, they're powerful, they're joyful, they are a godly role model, and you're like, I'm just so impacted by this being. Well, all they're doing is reflecting what's in you that you're just not operating in yet. That's a gift, right? And God is putting them in your life to let you know that that's in you too. I need you to start practicing that, right? See, what you celebrate in others, you can start activating in yourself. What you criticize, usually you kill. So that's just a little side note, okay? But you get the idea. There's who you're being, which is really important to be aware of, because you might be being something that is not creating the life that you want. An example of this, if you struggle or have struggled with an addiction, you are being somebody that you're not, right? You're not an addict, and you're not somebody that is designed to show up in the world in that way. But that addiction is killing who you're becoming. And once you have that revelation and cry out to God, he can deliver you from that. Okay? So that's an example. Who you're being doesn't always line up with who you are destined to be. Okay? So you always got to focus on who you're being, because that's going to give you a lot of very great information around, does this translate to the future that God is drawing me into? And then who are you becoming? Are you practicing becoming more of that person? Because it doesn't just happen. Right? You can have this great potential on the inside of you, but if you're not practicing it, if you're not cultivating it, if you're not training it, if you're not getting environments where you're put on the spot to practice it, to share it, right? To offer it that to the world, it's not going to get worked out. It's not going to get trained. And all the gifts come through training and use, right? Like muscles. If you're not working a muscle, it actually atrophies, right? You will lose it. You will lose muscle if you don't start to build it, okay? So same is true of the gifts that we have. We will not either activate them, or we can lose them too by not practicing them, all right? So be generous with what has been given to you. So let's talk about this. Become self-aware to get where you need to go. Become self-aware to get where you need to go. And we're going to talk about what this looks like, but there's actually a psychologist that came up with self-awareness, because the less self-aware we are, usually the more suffering that we are engaged in. Okay, so Daniel Goleman came up with a book called Emotional Intelligence. Okay, so he really taught that self-awareness is more than just emotional self-regulation. Okay, that emotional intelligence, in his definition, is the ability to perceive, to interpret, to demonstrate, control, and use emotions to communicate with and relate to others effectively and constructively. So he's not labeling emotions as good, bad, right, or wrong. He is saying they give you this ability. When you pay attention and you're aware of your emotions, they're not bad. They're not meant to be repressed. When you don't repress them, but when you actually allow them and start paying attention to them, they give you the ability to what? Perceive, interpret, demonstrate, control, and use emotions to communicate with and relate to others effectively and constructively. Check it out. So if you are in, let's call it a relationship riff of some kind, okay? Right? Something has gone wrong, and you're starting to notice it has something to do with you, right? Like you are reacting in a way that is bigger than the situation. Maybe you're being triggered by a past event and now making this person a target for that, right? Something is going on. If you have awareness of that, you can say in this moment, you can breathe through that, pause for a second, say, hey, you know what? I'm so sorry. I am recognizing that I feel triggered when you did that because of this past event in my life. And I didn't mean to take this out on you, but this is what's happening for me. So you can actually let this other person off the hook, right? You can communicate to them effectively about what's going on in you and what you're going to do and what would be helpful for them to do in the context of relationship. Next time, what would really help me is if you could do this, and here's what I'm going to do. Right now, we're learning where we could potentially hurt people unknowingly, right? And what we can do to adapt and to adjust and to love them well. Making sense? So if you're aware of that, you can do that. If you're not, you can be pointing fingers and blaming this person and just launching a full-on attack on them because you're living out a past experience through a trigger, okay? So what's interesting, you're probably familiar with Socrates, a philosopher, right? He talks about the wisdom of knowing thyself, right? And essentially, the more self-aware we are, we understand what we feel, maybe it's anger, sadness, fear, we can actually transform that into productive behavior. So when you think about it this way, how often have you exploded in anger instead of taking a Jesus time out and taking a minute to process that rage and then responding with careful thought and self-control? Well, you need the Holy Spirit to help you do that, right? But if you can learn that, starting with awareness, you can greatly change your relationships, okay? So when you're self-aware, what this means is you are basically giving this ongoing attention to what is happening internally in you, to what you are thinking, to what you are feeling, to what's heavy in you, to what you feel in your body. Like you are aware of what's going on, right? Emotional eaters, what do? They try to numb what they are feeling with food. They're trying to stop feelings. I don't want to feel anything, so I'm going to eat this food because then I'll focus on something else and that'll feel good for a minute. Make sense? And we do this in other ways too. It could be through alcohol. It could be through busyness. It could be through so many things, but we numb to stop feeling things. We don't want to feel and we don't want to do this work. But if you don't do this work, you never actually get free. Okay. So when you're self-aware, you're introspective to what's happening in you. You're mindful of what's happening to you and in you rather than letting it consume you and overwhelm you. Okay, so you can recognize what blind spots you have, where weaknesses are, where there's areas that are opportunities for improvement. And it really it helps you. Self-awareness really helps you discover where you are now so you can get to where you truly want to be, right? When you think about if you just go into, they probably still have them, but when you go to a mall, right, they have these big maps, especially if it's a huge mall now, and even with an outdoor section and all the things, there will be these maps all over the property, and you walk up to it, and what does it say? It says, you are here, okay? And then you're looking for the store that you want to get to. You can't actually coordinate a trip if you don't know where you're starting, okay? You need your start point and your end point, so you have to know who you're being to then help you know who you're becoming. Okay, which is really great because you're not limited. That in and of itself lets you know that you're not stuck. You have the potential to become all of the time, and you get to choose this every single day. Okay, so it allows you to discover where you are now so you can get to where you truly want to be. And if you want to reach your potential and live a truly meaningful and fulfilling life, you've got to begin by cultivating self-awareness. Now, when you repress emotion, when you're not aware, you basically shut off the flow of life. So let's say we don't want to feel sadness. Well, if you start repressing all of the emotions, you shut them all down. So then you can't experience joy. You can't experience laughter and connection and depth, because you're shutting down. You're shutting off a huge part of yourself. So the very things that you crave, which are usually connection and love and significance and being valued and appreciated, you're shutting that off. So essentially, you're not valuing and appreciating yourself, and you shut that off, and then you're not going to receive that outside of you either. And it's really easy to assume that we already know who we can become and all the possibilities that life has to offer. But if we are honest, chances are we've only had a glimpse, a little glimpse, a sliver of what's possible. Okay? It's so, so important. So there is an interesting exercise. It's a fun study that has happened. They did this with kids. It's called the Batman effect. And so researchers wanted to determine what type of mindset would improve work ethic in children. And they discovered something fascinating. I just love things like this. The practice of self-distancing, which is a type of self-awareness, had a big influence on their success. Isn't this interesting? So what they did in the study, there was a group of 4 and 6-year-olds. So just picture that. Maybe you have a 4 and 6-year-old, so this could be fun for you. But it was a group of 4 and 6-year-olds, and they were given a project to work on for 10 minutes with the option of taking a break to play a video game. Again, picture a 4 and a 6-year-old, okay? So the first group was directed to act naturally, just however they normally would, okay? And then the second group was asked to think about themselves in the third person and be extra self-aware of their actions. Then there was a third group, and they were invited to engage in a sort of identity swap where they could become their favorite superhero, like Batman or a Disney princess or whatever, movie or show that has a hero in it, something that was relatable to them. So the children who were not self-aware had the poorest performance. Like, what? That's so wild, right? Children who operated with self-awareness had a 13% improvement in their work effort. And the children who took on a superhero identity had a 23% greater performance than the first group and evidenced more diligence and perseverance. Come on. And we're just, little kids in adult bodies, so this is relevant to us too. And this study really solidly demonstrated the power of building self-awareness. Or if it works on kids, it works on us as adults as well, right? So when you are self-aware, the point being, you reap the benefits of a superpower, okay? You can interrupt your unconscious programming and all of your emotion-driven reactions. So you don't have to react to everything in your life. You can respond or not. You can actually exercise wisdom and self-control. And self-awareness, especially when you use this as you're developing and cultivating your relationship with God, it is so important. In the spiritual and the supernatural, what we call this in a lot of ways is sensitivity. Okay? You have to have self-awareness of self, of what your thoughts are, of what your emotions are, of what you're feeling and experiencing. But then you also have to have awareness of your sensitivity to the Spirit of God. Because how can you be aware of the Spirit if you're not paying attention, right? If you don't have any solitude, any time where you're reflecting, any moments where you're actively focusing on being sensitive and paying attention to how the Spirit is moving. Can you sense the Spirit's presence? What are you sensing? What are you noticing, right? That's very different, but that same skill of self-awareness is valuable because it helps you be more sensitive spiritually, okay? So really consider this. How often are you walking around your life not aware? You might even be driving in your car and you're just looking at your cell phone. You're not even looking at the road. And thank God you are being divinely protected, because that could go so many ways, right? Or maybe you're in a conversation, but you're on your phone again rather than listening to that person. Or somebody's talking and you're not listening to them. You're just thinking about what you want to interject or, what you want to order at a restaurant or whatever. You're not actually listening to them. There's no eye contact. There's no presence. You're available for distraction. Like, you're not training yourself just to be aware, right? looking into somebody's eyes, looking into their expression, looking into their heart, right? There's so much information that you can gather. You're just not being aware. And a majority of us are not aware every single day. Okay? So self-awareness really makes you bulletproof in a lot of ways and resistant to threats, right? You don't fall for the same things that you would if you, right, weren't aware. When you're unaware, you can fall into all sorts of traps, right? And the enemy will make sure of it. But it really is something that provides capacity and a pathway to consciously think and act with wisdom, which is God's best for your life, okay? So there's barriers that I want to share here so that you can be aware of what's getting in your way from being aware, okay? So this mindset of self-awareness, I will tell you, right? And it's something that we honor in Courage Co. It takes courage to be aware and often feels wildly uncomfortable, especially when you're first starting to become aware, because a lot of times we're trained in perfectionism and looking at what's wrong with us. We're trained in comparison, especially if you have a perfectionism past, right? Perfectionism also brings with it comparison because you want to be better than what's around you so that you can be perfect. So you're comparing yourself to other people. Horrible standard for your life, right? But that is what makes self-awareness hard in the beginning because you're aware of all of your perceived limits, all of the things that are getting in the way. Okay. So we are going to expose them and then we're going to give you a powerful tool to get them out of the way. Okay. So it takes courage and often feels really uncomfortable, right? We may not like what we see when we view ourselves on a deeper level. Usually all of the impurities surface when we start actively looking at ourselves. We're not as awesome and perfect as we've trained ourselves to present to the world, right? But without awareness, our potential is limited. When we are not aware, our potential is limited. And we don't know what we can't see. So we can't fix what we're not aware of. We can't change what we're blind to. And if we don't work on ourselves, we'll stunt our personal growth. Okay? And this is what a lot of great leaders have figured out. So anytime you see a leader, they're constantly investing in themselves. They're putting themselves in proximity of people that have become what it is that they are on a path of becoming, right? They are stretching constantly because they know personal growth is important and you're not going to grow if you stay in the same environments all the time, okay? So here are, and I'll break down each of them, but here are 4 very common barriers to self-awareness. Number 1, pride. Ew. And I know, everyone's first thought, I can feel you. I'm not prideful. Okay, we'll find out in a minute. Busyness. We probably all can attest to this, right? It's funny. People in the Courage Co. world know that I don't subscribe to that. I never say, people might say, oh, you're so busy. I said, I don't identify with that. My life is full and fulfilling. It's not busy. Because if you're on assignment, that's different, okay? Character sabotage, which is what we talk a lot about here on the podcast. We talk about how you transform self-sabotage, which is really believing lies and fear-walking, into self-mastery, okay? And then our constant demand to be entertained. These are 4 common barriers to self-awareness, okay? So number 1, pride. This is probably the greatest barrier, and it's sneaky, right? Pride is very sneaky. And when a person believes that they've already maybe thought of or been exposed to all they need to know, here's what they do. They lock themselves into that place. So there's an adage that says experience is the best teacher, but that's not always true. There's actual studies that say that the more power or experience a leader holds, the more likely they are to believe that they are more virtuous than they actually are. So simply put, power begets pride. That's often what happens. And similarly, the kind of leaders are also more likely to overestimate or overvalue their skills and strengths, including emotional self-awareness, empathy, and trustworthiness when compared to other people's assessments of them. Okay. So what really starts to happen is they've got this puffed up sense of their own abilities. Well, I've already experienced that before. I'm on my high horse, right? Like I have this many degrees. I'm all of these things. Okay. And not only does pride come before a fall, we know that if we're reading our Bible, right? Pride shows up because you don't even consider failing a possibility. Ooh wee. I just had to let that one sit for a second. So an example of this, if a friend or let's say a colleague talks to you about something you already know, how many times have you said, oh, I know. I've already learned that, right? It's really, really interesting. We'll say that, right? And we can just shut off this beginner's mind, this ability to have childlike wonder and being very childlike and being open to learning something. So that would be like saying, I've already read the Bible. I know what's in there. Really? Every time I read it, even if I read Proverbs over and over and over, there's different revelation that the Holy Spirit keeps revealing to me, right? I could never know the fullness of what's in there, no matter how many times I read it. Now, that book is different, but you get the idea. Whether you go to, let's say, a conference and you go to it 7 times, probably every time, if you have a beginner's mind, you will learn something different. But if you go in thinking like, oh, I've already heard this before, you shut off on the inside and you close yourself off to learning. Okay. So when we refuse to take responsibility for our vices and avoid painful self-reflection, we often find ourselves in a really destructive path. And this is really necessary to grasp. Okay. Because pride keeps us from being aware of our capacity for good and evil. And because of that, it prevents us from becoming people we want to be. All right. So a healthy understanding of our capacity for both good and evil is necessary, right? You are a saint. You are a son or a daughter of God, but you also have the capacity to sin. Okay. That's not a reason to go do it, but you have the capacity. You better be aware of that. You are not immune to temptation. And if you think you're above temptation, you best watch yourself, right? You're about to fall. So we have to constantly humble ourselves to walk worthy of the call. Okay. So think about it like this way. Imagine your worst qualities, dependencies, or habits. Let's say you're a hot-tempered human. Okay. Or maybe you're drawn to drinking more than just at a social gathering, right? Oh, it's not that bad. My anger is, it's really not that bad. That's normal. Or I only drink after 5, right? There's excuses that we start creating. Now, magnify that, compound it times 10. Just track for a second. Play out in your mind what might happen. Could you end up divorced? Could you become an alcoholic? If you don't get a handle on your drinking, could you even get behind the wheel? Right? So bringing light to both the good and the bad parts of ourselves actually diminishes pride and illuminates what needs to be changed so we can grow. So a key here is not to get involved and invested in guilt and shame and condemnation. Therefore, there's now no condemnation for those who walk in Christ, right? What you want to do is be curious. That's interesting. I didn't know that had the wheel. I didn't know that was driving in my life. I didn't know that I was making that bigger than God. You see, that awareness is so important, okay? It's crucial, even if it's shocking, to realize the evil we are capable of. It's so easy to say like, how did that person do that? I can't believe that. If I were in that situation, I would never do that. Never say never. You have no idea, based on what somebody's life experiences has been, based on what their programming has been, based on what their trauma has been, based on what healing they have experienced or have not experienced, why they made that decision. And if you had all the same programming conditions that they had, you might operate the exact same way and make the exact same choice. You can never say never. Okay? Pride. 2, busyness. So this is another barrier to increasing your capacity for self-awareness, because chances are, if you ask, 10 humans, let's say, on any given day, how are you doing? They'll say, busy. I'm so busy. Life is good. It's just busy. Right? Probably 9 out of 10, if not all 10, would say that. So we're running to or from something all of the time. All we're doing is running, but we're really running on empty. Like that old song, right? We're running on empty. So we're dropping the kids off somewhere. Then we're running home to do this project. Then we're running home to get on a call. Then we're running to this errand and that place, right? And with all this movement, where's the self-awareness? Just asking. With all of that movement and busyness, where's the awareness? Where's the awareness? And the answer to this is simple. You. No one can afford not to make time for self-reflection. You've got to practice stopping, being still, and reflecting on whether you're working on the right things at the right time, whether you're fully present in moments or not. Are you focusing your energy on the tasks that are most important? Are you bringing your love and your presence to things? Right? Like, let's say you work from home. Do your kids always see that you're too busy for them? You're always on the phone. I'll get to you when I'm done. Or think about this way. Create a space where you actually shut yourself in a room so that they're not seeing you all the time being distracted to them, right? Then when you leave that room, you focus on them. I love you. What are you doing? Just give your attention, give your love to them and watch what that does. You don't have to shift a lot, but you can acknowledge them. You can see them. You can encourage them. You can pour life and love into them. And then you can go back to work. That takes 30 seconds. Sometimes that's all a kid needs, okay? So you can make little shifts, but you can't do that if you're not aware. Character sabotage. Number 3. Character sabotage. And what this is really being overwhelmed by vices in a lot of ways, okay? So when your character is compromised, self-awareness is out of reach. I'm going to say that one again because it's so good. When your character is compromised, self-awareness is out of reach. So you might be fooling other people. You could be faking a lot, thinking that you're going to make it somewhere. Probably won't be good because there's a way that seems right, in our eyes, but in the end leads to destruction. That's a lot of what happens when we come up with our own plans, right? So you might be faking it till you make it. You might be strutting your stuff and presenting a real good game to the outward world to please somebody that's probably more invested in themselves to not even care about what you're presenting, unfortunately, right? But you might be presenting some good game and you might be convincing people of the lies that you're offering, but you can't lie to yourself. Eventually, the lies will chase you down. All the lies that you're sowing, they will chase you down and overtake you. That's what will happen. It'll catch up with you. It's only a matter of time. The things that are hidden will be brought to light. So what you keep getting so fixated on hiding, it will come back out to bite you when you least expect it. That's not freedom, okay? And there's no self-awareness in that because what all you're practicing and mastering is becoming a really great liar. I don't know about you, but that's not something I want to become masterful at. So if you tend to gossip about a coworker or maybe even your leader, so sad. We see this all the time. Maybe you have an unhealthy attachment to money or achievements or have a tough time controlling your temper, right? It's a sign that your capacity for self-awareness is being threatened. So these vices are much like having blinders on. And just as blinders really restrict, let's say, a horse's vision, right? When they've got blinders on, or even picture blinders in your car, like the visors, right? Vices restrict who you really are and limit you from reaching your full potential. So you'll get really good at perfecting your vices and fronting what you got going on, but you'll master a lie and you'll wake up so depressed because you can't lie to yourself. There's going to be a radar deep on the inside of you that knows that you're lying. You know that you're lying. You know what you're full of. You know it when you are in front of your kids, when you're in front of your partner, when you're at work. You know that you're lying. And that will eat you alive. There's zero freedom in that. And that becomes a blinder because there's no limit to the lies that you can begin engaging in. And you have no self-awareness. You get so good at believing your own lies that you're not aware of truth and who you actually are. That becomes very problematic. So character sabotage can start small. That's usually how the devil starts, right? And then it gets massive, okay? And then lastly, number 4, our constant demand to be entertained. Our constant demand to be entertained. So we need countless hours that are just wasted scrolling social media, binge watching television shows, and going down a rabbit hole of even YouTube videos, right? Just spiking your dopamine, right? It feels so good in the moment. And then 7 hours go by, right? Even if you're watching Netflix, it's like, are you still there? You want to keep watching? Ask me again later. Whatever it says, right? So think about that. When people lack purpose, they're more inclined to trade their love of learning and personal growth for immediate gratification. This is a vision problem. When people lack purpose, they're more inclined to trade their love of learning and personal growth for immediate gratification. Just think about this. All of the hours that you're putting into social media, your phone will tell you. All the hours that you put into some streaming show, whether it's, I don't know, I don't watch them, but Hulu, Netflix, Prime, whatever they are, right? All the hours that you put into those, do you remember the shows that you're watching? Do you get any of that time back? Is it helping you be a better human and helping you become more of who you're called to be? Interesting. Could that be part of its job? Who benefits from you not growing? Who benefits from you not being self-aware? That's worth thinking about. Okay, so think about this. For you personally, we've laid some things out here just to give you a general overview, right? But for you, what is your biggest barrier to self-awareness? Is it any of these big 4? What you want to do is get brutally honest with you so you can start becoming who you're meant to be, okay? And then what you can do is you can start activating self-awareness, all right? So we're going to teach you how to do this just briefly, okay? I go into all sorts of beautiful tools and skills when I work one-on-one with people, and you definitely see this in our different programs as well. And when you work this, you unlock so much goodness, okay? So something that you got to do is you got to practice being present. Where does the Bible tell us this? Be still and know that I'm God. Be still. You have to create quiet. You have to create space without distraction. And you probably have to fight for it. You have to discipline yourself to show up to it and even get regimented. It'll probably feel super weird to you in the beginning because it's not what you've practiced. It's not what you've made important. But if you don't create space to become aware, to be in the moment, not just to do something, to reflect, to be present, to pay attention to your environment, to start scanning your thoughts, to start paying attention to feelings that you're feeling, to start noticing what is happening in your body and what is driving you every single day, to actually sit and be still. Like, what if you just did that for 15 minutes every single day? Right? You could take the time that you were on social media, okay? And instead of doing that, turn that off. Turn it off, right? If you have a TV in your bedroom, get it out of your bedroom. Journal in your bedroom. Relax your mind in your bedroom. Make it a no technology zone, right? Go into a closet space and just journal, right? Wherever you got to go, you can, if you are determined, you can find space, even if it's your car, in your driveway, okay? Or there's like a little park down your street that you can go sit out with your journal. You can make this happen, okay? But you want to start by getting away from the distraction and then start recognizing thoughts, start writing them down, start noticing what's happening on the inside of you, and start really paying attention to what you start writing down. Start noticing what you start writing down. Start noticing, what you're studying every day, what you're focusing on. Because the truth is, living on autopilot is really easy, but you gain so much more from facing hard truths that can open your eyes to new and better possibilities. right? And it's really time to become more aware of so many things that you're not paying attention to, your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities, right? And become more aware of just different things that are standing in your way that you actually have the power to change. So when you're reading the word, right, you can meditate on that word. You can start asking God questions about that word. You can start looking up words. You can start looking through commentaries. You can start really studying the word and breaking it down and putting in time and effort to glean all that is there for you, all of the promise that is there for you to unlock, because nobody can do that for you. We live in a world where we try to live off somebody else's revelation and their anointing, but that's not how it works. You can copy people, you can imitate people, but you can't fake an anointing. You can't, right? You can literally copy and paste people's posts on the internet. You can copy and paste how they show up in the world and imitate them down to the emoji, right? that you use. But here's the thing, you can't actually be another version of them. You'll just fake who you are designed to be, and you can't have their anointing. And then you also, because you're not honoring them, you can't receive from them and the value that they actually have from you, because you're not respecting and honoring them. You only receive an impartation from people that you honor and respect. Interesting, right? So start spending 15 minutes a day not doing anything, but just being. Just sit in stillness for 15 minutes. Yeah, but then I'm going to think about all my thoughts. That's great. You probably need to actually pay attention to what you're thinking. Well, then I'm going to feel all this stuff, probably. Notice it. But then I don't have time for that. Well, do you have time to work on who you're becoming? Because here's the greatest lie. You will not become who you're here to be if you don't invest in that. So if you don't have time for it, you're not becoming anything different. You'll stay exactly who you're being today, or worse. That's the truth. Who you're becoming is what you're practicing today. So if you don't create space for stillness, for awareness, to focus, to actually be all here now, to be present, to pay attention to what you're thinking about and meditating on day and night that could be causing your suffering, to pay attention to what emotions are telling you about what's going on in your heart. Maybe it's showing you that therapy is a great option, that working with a coach is a great option, that getting some help with what's going on inside of you is a great option. Instead of pretending that you're okay or that it's all good, learning some new skills and tools, processing that, releasing that, working through that could be the way, okay? So here's something that you can do to start building some practical activity with self-awareness, okay? In the corporate world, they do a lot of SWOT analysis, okay? It's SWOT, SWOT, all right? And it was developed at Stanford back in the day, and it was really designed to help companies specifically identify any internal and external aspects of the company that need improvement. And it's also going to expose potential threats. So yes, they might welcome ideas and innovation, but they're only going to move into an idea once they've done a full analysis of it. They're not just going to go blind into something, because in a big company, there's big risk, right? So they want to eliminate risk. There's whole departments that's all they do, okay? So SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, okay? So how you do this personally, which is kind of fun, is number one, you're going to list your strengths. So you can ask yourself questions, right? What abilities and skills do I have? What am I naturally great at? What do others see as my character and my skill strengths? What positive personality traits do I have? How has God wired me? What is my uniqueness? Number two, know your weaknesses. So you can ask yourself, what are my bad habits? What are my vices? What would others say I can improve? And if you don't have anybody around you that can challenge you and that can offer an answer to this, you probably need to surround yourself with new people. If you just got yes people around you or enablers, those are not people that are for you, okay? What valid criticism have you received? We learn way more from critics a lot of the time than people that have great things to say about us. Brutal honesty and courage are necessary to effectively answer these questions. Okay? Pride is what usually gets in the way here. What do you usually avoid doing because you lack confidence? And if you're having trouble thinking of this, think about the most successful people you admire who have strong character and list qualities in them that you lack and you'd like to start emulating, right? A great one is Jesus. Compare yourself to Jesus, okay? 3, look for opportunities. List the positive factors that can give you an advantage and improve your situation. So this could look like opportunities to serve in the place where you're being fed, serve in your local community, be around people with similar values and goals, gain more knowledge through attending a workshop or finding a mentor, even apply for a new job or learn a new skill, okay? And then number 4, avoid or eliminate threats, okay? So list any external forces that hinder your personal growth and keep you from fulfilling your potential. All right? Threats could come in the form of people, pay attention to that, situations, life events, even yourself. So it's really important to pay attention to that. So ask yourself, are there people in my life who really exacerbate my weaknesses? What reduces my motivation and productivity? What is the biggest external barrier to becoming the person I want to be? You gotta identify it, okay? And your threats may in some way be related to your weaknesses too. So becoming aware of both can really help you identify and eliminate what is preventing you from growing and moving forward. And you may realize you've been hanging out with the wrong crowd and you need to find more supportive people who can encourage you and lovingly tell you the truth or confront you in love when necessary. You may realize that you need to give up previous commitments or spend your time differently or avoid distractions, let's say just even in the culture, that are leading you away from high level character. That might be something that only you can change. But the key here in all of this is awareness. And this analysis that you do can really help you open the capacity to be more self-aware. And you may uncover things about yourself that are very tough to look at and to envision changing, but it really is humbling because it lets us know how much we need God, right? Because we really can't change and transform on our own, and we were never designed to. So this is just a tool to help you become more aware of where your opportunities are, okay? And it's certainly not an easy space to explore, but it is so worth it, okay? And then over time, engaging in self-awareness becomes more natural to you, okay? But often in the beginning, it is diligence. It's a conscious decision to step outside of what's normal, what's familiar, what you're used to, and start exploring how you currently show up, okay? And when you become more self-aware, you start to realize you're not the only self out there. Really honest self-awareness leads to noticing other people, being more compassionate, recognizing what they're going through, right? As well as our role in our community and in the world, okay? So not only do you have self-awareness, but the more self-aware you become more socially aware, okay? And that's so, so important. So you can think like this: self-awareness can motivate me to change things for the better. It's easier to ignore what's really going on because I can't do anything about it anyway. Hear the mentalities there? Two totally different things. So being aware of yourself and others really compels you to stop and look at the needs surrounding you, not turn the other cheek, okay? It frees you from this grip of selfishness and self-centeredness and self-interest, and it really helps you view humanity through a bigger lens rather than this little bubble of a world that you live in. And especially if you are a servant leader, there's no way that you can be a servant leader by being selfish. Just cannot happen, okay? But what awareness does is it prompts you to do something for somebody else. You don't want to miss the opportunity to alleviate the suffering of another person, so you take action. You give up your seat on the subway. You hold somebody's hand and you listen. You volunteer at a community food bank. You tutor somebody for free. You become aware of the needs of others and you fill in gaps. You don't talk about those things. You rise to the occasion. And when you're aware, you immediately become positioned to do meaningful things. Because everywhere your feet touch, you have authority. God didn't plant you there randomly. But are you aware of that? Are you able to live with that awareness in every single moment? Don't just think of what becoming more aware can do for you, but think about what becoming a more aware can do for other people. Step outside of yourself and examine your level of self and others focused awareness. What is it that you are not aware of? What is it that you're missing out on? Is there a hidden skill in somebody you know? Is there, emotional needs of a loved one that you're totally overlooking? Maybe even the presence of God in your life. Do you spend any amount of time numbing out? Is there something you haven't been aware of? Maybe it's an opportunity, your potential, a person in need, a way you can pray, a way you can intercede and stand in the gap for somebody. Shift your life forward by awakening to God's truth, right? He has something for you to catch. Hopefully you've been catching some in this whole episode today. Is there something you're overlooking or trying to forget? Is there something that you can pay attention to that will bring you closer to the person that God's called you to be? Start creating space. Start creating space. There's a beautiful scripture. It says, put God in remembrance, right? What that means is start creating space for God. Well, you probably won't create space for God if you're not even creating space for you, because you have to create space for you so you can get honest about you with God, in front of God, okay? Because God cares about you and your innermost being. So I want to challenge you. It's really time to break through your limitations. And a lot of these come from all of these barriers that we talked about to self-awareness. Self-awareness is so incredibly powerful. When you find out who you're being, it can give you insight to what is shifting you away from your purpose, from your calling, from what it is that's actually stalling you out in real time. And then it's going to give you an opportunity to move toward a life of impact and meaning, the one that you're actually called to. And it's one that you're responsible to live, whether you're aware of it or not. Okay? So important. All right? There's so much goodness packed in this episode. I encourage you, if this message blessed you, would you rate the podcast 5 stars and leave a review? I would appreciate that so much. Also, come join us in Courage Co. We offer so much beautiful content like this, and I encourage you to invest in your journey in some sort of way, whether that's here or somewhere else. Invest in your journey. Put time, put money, put your commitment to who it is that you're becoming. Back that up with the fullness of who you are, right? And watch God partner with you and start bringing forth new wisdom, new strategies, new solutions, new tools, new resources, new insights, new perspectives. Watch him change your life. It's something that you have to commit to. You can't be half-hearted about it. You've got to be all in. So just challenge yourself to think about that today. Where are you numbing out where you can practice more awareness? Where are you being half-hearted and just demonstrating a weak will and a weak commitment, where you can shore that up and get serious about this life that's not your own? How can you live in such a way that it's a good return on investment to your Lord and Savior? Really challenge you to think about these. Actually answer them. Answer them. It'll probably be so revealing and life-changing if you follow through on what is exposed there. Okay? All right, everybody. I hope this message blessed you. And until next time, stay blessed. Listen, if you are not plugged into Courage Co yet, what are you doing? Courage Co is a faith-based community off social media that you can access from your phone or your desktop, literally from anywhere. It is a safe place and a sacred space for you to invest in and live your most courageous and impactful story. You can join us for free for prayer calls and challenges, for a monthly subscription where we have monthly masterclasses, or the God's Vibes Mastermind, where you will get live master life coaching at a price that you won't get anywhere else. 12 weeks of content that we will go through together, or you can navigate at your own pace. You'll have lifetime access to that. A community of women doing this alongside of you, a workbook, and so many other materials to help you on your journey. And I just want you to imagine for a second, having the courage, clarity, and focus to achieve anything you desire. Walking into any situation fully confident, knowing you have everything you need to succeed. Embracing challenges and overcoming obstacles with grace and ease. Feeling only love and compassion for others, no matter how they may have hurt you in the past. Standing up for what you believe in and taking unstoppable action to create the kind of world you want to live in. You're in the right place to take your next step on your journey. When you plug into the God's Vibes Mastermind, I'll teach you how to identify and eliminate the self-limiting beliefs and habits that are stopping you from getting the results you want. I'll teach you how to heal old wounds that have negatively impacted your self-image and self-esteem for far too long. I'll show you how to dismantle the story of who you are and what you can or cannot do in the world. I'll help you expand your consciousness from fear-based limitation to love and compassion and service to the world. I'll help you vanquish the inner enemies that are stopping you from being all that you can be. Release your victimhood and reclaim your power. Develop a aligned mindset and habits to boost your productivity and results. Gain deeper awareness of your own inner light and divinity, and achieve the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual self-mastery needed to achieve any goal. You will learn how to think the way God formed, shaped, and anointed you to think, and succeed the way He always intended, and show up in any situation as the most powerful person in the room, no matter what challenges might appear on your path. If this sounds like something that you want to be a part of, I want to invite you to join the God's Vibes Mastermind. You can get plugged into it over at Courage Co. You can access Courage Co at any level at www.courageco.org. Together, we will awaken your inner warrior spirit and unleash your capacity to achieve any goal you can imagine. You will become an example of what's possible with God.